It must be the biggest intelligence leak in military history. More than 90,000 military files from US archives have emerged. They chart the progress of the Afghan war virtually blow by blow. We've trawled through all this data so that you can make sense of it. The first thing we put together for you is an interactive map of all the IEDs, improvised explosive devices. This shows you how their use has rocketed over 5 years. The next thing we've done is an interactive guide to more than 200 key events where we've showed you the full reports. These detail events such as friendly fire when coalition forces attack each other by accident, occasions when coalition forces have fired on civilians or shot them down, and so-called green on greens in which the Afghan forces fire on each other. These log entries need a bit of explanation. Here's how they're organised. Some of the rows just contain map references and the like, so you don't need to worry about them. The second line shows you the date and often the time when these events occurred. It'll run from 2004 to 2009. This section, the third, describes the type of incident. Sometimes this will say friendly fire, for example, which means our troops firing on each other. If it says friendly action, however, it means an engagement in which our side, the friendly side, started the shooting. The fourth entry, called a category, can have similar information. It might say blue-blue, for example, which means friendly troops firing at each other. The sixth entry is the title line. This can often contain the numbers of people KIA, killed in action, or WIA, which means wounded in action. This one's the really important entry. It's called a summary. It carries a short report of what is supposed to have actually happened. It's often written in plain English, although sometimes in a pretty impenetrable military jargon. There follow some rows designed for statistics. How many friendly forces, host nation or civilians were killed or wounded in action. Unfortunately, these are highly unreliable, and very often the authors simply fail to fill them in. Down at the bottom, there's a section called CCIR. This can be important. It's called Commander's Critical Information Requirement. It may sometimes say things like negative media expected, or credible allegations that civilians have been injured. In addition, you can download all this raw data from our data blog as a spreadsheet.
Hundreds of civilian deaths, a black unit to hunt down Taliban leaders, intelligence pointing to Pakistani and Iranian involvement in the insurgency. The US military's secret Afghanistan war logs provide the most revealing picture of the conflict so far. An hour-by-hour account emerges from 92,000 cryptic reports, each recording an incident involving NATO troops, a Taliban attack, or intelligence received. They were shared with The Guardian, The New York Times, and Der Spiegel by the whistleblower's website, WikiLeaks. Its founder, Julian Assange, explains why he made it public.
If journalism is good, it is controversial by its nature. It is the role of good journalism to take on powerful abuses. And when powerful abuses are taken on, there is always a back reaction. So we see that controversy, and I believe that is a good thing to engage in. And in this case, it will show the true nature of this war. And then the public from Afghanistan and other nations can see what's really going on and take steps to address the problems. The significance of this material is both the overarching context, that is, it covers the entire war since 2004, and individual events which are also significant, or a thread of events. So those include something like Task Force 373, an US-based assassination squad that goes around Afghanistan killing people on a kill or capture list. It includes significant events where many people were killed. For instance, we are looking at an event that killed 181 people at once, some by an AC-130 gunship. It includes detail about how the war is supported in various ways. So how the political class in Kabul interfaces with US military and intelligence, how the corruption is spread through that community, but also how the war is mediated by Pakistan and possibly by Iran. The nearest analogue is the Pentagon Papers, which was released in the early 70s. That exposed how the United States was prosecuting the war in Vietnam. That was some 10,000 pages, and some of those pages were accepted and put into the New York Times and other US newspapers. It wasn't for several years that a book was published of some 5,000 of those pages by Beacon Press. This situation is different in that it's not just more material, and being pushed to a bigger audience, and much sooner, if you like. Everyone has the book, the whole lot at once. But rather that people can give back. So people around the world who are reading this are able to comment on it and put it in context and understand the full situation. That is not something that has previously occurred, and that is something that can only be brought about as a result of the internet. Militaries keep information secret to prosecute their part of a war, but also to hide abuse. And there is a military argument for keeping some information secret that is very timely. So an example of where troops are about to deploy. But that information expires quickly. And this information ranges from 2004 to 2010. So that argument is not valid for this type of information. This legend on my t-shirt is really quite nice. It's from the Norwegian Journalists Association, SKUP, and it says, dig down in time. And it's a reference to the snowfalls in Norway, that if you're up in the mountains and there's a lot of snow, you've got to dig down in time to be safe. But for investigative journalism, this is dig down into the archives to understand.
Is to hold it accountable. And the way to make government accountable is make it transparent so that the American people can know exactly what decisions are being made, how they're being made, and whether their interests are being well served. The directives I am giving my administration today on how to interpret the Freedom of Information Act will do just that. For a long time now, there's been too much secrecy in this city. The old rules said that if there was a defensible argument for not disclosing something to the American people, then it should not be disclosed. That era is now over. Starting today, every agency and department should know that this administration stands on the side not of those who seek to withhold information, but those who seek to make it known. To be sure, issues like personal privacy and national security must be treated with the care they demand. But the mere fact that you have the legal power.
Let me introduce Lieutenant Colonel Brian Christmas. He's the commanding officer of the 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines. Really a wonderful group of Marines here. I know that you care deeply about this contradiction, the fact that here you have one of the best fighting forces in the world ever mounted, and in a sense you're watching as this opium is being grown. I know it grinds at your gut. How do you deal with it? What are you doing about it?
Well, frankly, this is part of their culture. So while it might grind in my gut, it's what they do. We provide them security, we're providing them resources, and we're providing them alternatives. And the alternatives are different crops to grow. They're getting the seed and the fertilizer to do it. They can rotate any of their crops that they want. If they want to get rid of their wheat and grow cotton for the winter, they can do that, and we're going to help them do it. So the same thing goes for the cotton.
So you think that, we were at the market, and everywhere we go, they're selling these little devices. Take a shot of this, Greg. They're hand-carved. These are the little devices they use to scrape the opium sap off the plant. And I watched as you bought every one that was for sale because you care so deeply. Why did you?
President Obama sends more U.S. troops to Afghanistan to help with the opium harvest. Security. In the UK, Bank of England calls for anal lubrication. Printing money. Quantitative easing. Revolution unnecessary, say shadowy puppet masters. A little unrest maybe, but we can handle you. Hello, barrelless minions. Welcome to the fucking news. I'm fomenting discontent. Here are the headlines tonight. President Obama has announced he's sending 17,000 extra troops to Afghanistan to help raise the price of heroin on the world market. Stamp out opium production in Afghanistan. What's that? Isn't that the same thing? USUC is a victim of its own success with regard to heroin production in Afghanistan. The Taliban virtually eliminated it, and then after the US invaded, opium production soared year after year. The price dropped across the world, and a gram of heroin can now be bought for as little as £25, with the average price somewhere between 40 and 50 per gram. In 1998, the average was 74. So, if we want to pay off our collective bailout debt with drug money, that will never do. President Obama went on not to say, drugs make a lot of money, unless they're legal, and there are lots of them. So it's important to the global criminal overlords whose spawn I am that we reduce supply, increase demand, and enforce their illegal status as a cover for our drug operation in Afghanistan. Let me tell you, it's all about the Taliban and how they hate us and our way of life. Yes, they do. And we can't allow that. So we will kill them all, or make them love us by occupying their country and oppressing them and their wacky beliefs, which are so different from ours. God bless America and the talking snake that caused us to live on Earth. I know. We could leave them alone, tap their phone calls, monitor their activities like we do to you folks at home, but I feel it would be much better use of your money to stay here and protect these important opium resources. I mean, eradicate oversupply on behalf of the shadowy puppet masters whose checks got me elected.